This man transplanted artificial skin onto an unsightly birthmark. The patch of skin began to grow uncontrollably. It quickly covered the scars on his face. However, the growth didn't stop in time. The man hurriedly grabbed a scalpel to cut the tissue around his mouth and nose, but he soon collapsed on the ground from asphyxiation. His daughter quickly picked up the knife to help, but ultimately, the father died from suffocation. Welcome to the most bizarre and thrilling work crafted. The girl Wei relied on her father for everything. The father and daughter both had a large birthmark on their faces due to family genetics. Wei's father was constantly researching to use science to repair the birthmark. One day, he applied the artificial skin he had worked hard to create on his face. This led to the scene at the beginning of the film. The uncontrolled growth of the skin resulted in Wei's father's suffocation and death. Years passed, and Wei had grown into an adult. She achieved excellent grades and was admitted to a prestigious school in New Zealand with a full scholarship to stay with her distant relative Munsa. Munsa was an independent woman. She owned her own beauty product business. Munsa had been divorced from her husband for many years. She lived in New Zealand with her daughter. Now, Munsa had a nice house in the suburbs. When Wei saw her cousin Angela, she felt very inferior. If only she didn't have these birthmarks on her face. The next day, Wei went to class. She felt uncomfortable among a bunch of blonde foreigners. The teacher conducted a quick pop quiz. Wei achieved a perfect score. Her classmates whispered among themselves and mocked her as a typical Chinese nerd. They viewed Wei as a stereotypical, bookish person. Before class ended, the teacher announced that they needed a lab assistant. The sign-up sheet was on a clipboard outside the lab. Students interested could sign up. Wei was very interested in the position of lab assistant. After all, she had traveled to New Zealand to study medical research, to fulfill her father's legacy, and change her own fate. When the teacher learned that Wei's father was a scientist, she thought this girl would be a great fit as an assistant. Cousin Angela invited her glamorous friends over to their house. They gathered to discuss the strange altar in the living room. It was specially arranged by Munsa for Wei, so that she could mourn her father at any time. A few girls mocked Wei after seeing her father's photo, saying, "No wonder Wei always wears a scarf." They realized it was to cover her hereditary birthmark. Angela also rushed into Wei's room with her friends to see the various anatomical diagrams on her wall. They laughed at Wei for being a weirdo. While pulling open her drawer, they were surprised to find it full of scalpels and even some bloodstains. The girls quickly left Wei's room and ran downstairs to watch a horror movie. When Wei returned, she nearly scared them to death. Angela explained that it was girls' night. It was Wei's first opportunity to interact with so many girls her age. She brought dinner to join them, but Angela and her friends found an excuse to leave. Wei really wanted to fit into this group, so she mustered the courage to invite them for tea. Wei took Angela and the others to a nearby tea house. However, this cousin had grown up in New Zealand and knew nothing about Chinese culture. Her two foreign friends were also clueless about it. They stared blankly at the chicken feet on the table. Only Wei picked them up and ate them. She kindly turned the turntable to Angela's side and explained, "I heard from Munsa that you love this, so I ordered it specially for you." Angela felt embarrassed when she was publicly called out. In any case, everyone felt uncomfortable during the meal, except for Wei. No one touched their chopsticks. She could only take a bunch of takeout boxes home. On the way back, Wei encountered a disfigured homeless man. Perhaps it was sympathy between kindred spirits. Wei couldn't help but share her food with the man. It was also the first time she revealed her birthmark to a stranger. The homeless man noticed that Wei was very insecure. He comforted her, saying, "You are very beautiful, and you have a kind heart." Suddenly, the teacher drove up. He offered to drive Wei home himself. On the way, the teacher expressed interest in Wei's father's research. He suggested that they might be able to complete the experiment together. Wei was very happy to hear this, but the teacher only needed a promising research project. Because the experimental funding was rejected, Wei was unaware of these details and ran to the memorial to tell her father, "I will make you proud." She heard voices coming from upstairs, so she peeked through the keyhole. She saw Angela bringing her boyfriend home. The pet dog barked at the door, sensing the presence of outsiders. Angela rushed downstairs and laid down some rules for Wei. "Don't show up in front of me, and don't talk to me. There can't be any smell of incense or spices in the house." Wei went back upstairs and couldn't help but cry. The next day, she joined the teacher in her father's research. Wei believed the reason her father failed was due to the lack of an organic component, a kind of adhesive that could fuse tissues. The teacher recognized the potential of this research. If the experiment succeeded, It could heal countless burn victims, and those with congenital deformities. He could also secure substantial funding from the school board. Wei and the teacher each had their own dreams, as they dove into the experiment. However, after several days, there was still no progress. The teacher gradually lost patience with Wei, and hired a new assistant, Amy. Although Amy was also a friend of Angela's, she was different from the others. She didn't target Wei from the beginning, because Amy understood that fitting into a new environment isn't easy. Amy encouraged Wei to take off her scarf. Some things, the more you try to hide them, the more attention they attract. At this moment, Wei noticed a poster for a flower exhibition on the floor. Before she could say anything, Amy took the initiative to share the headphones with her, and extended the hand of friendship first. Wei suddenly had an idea because of the poster. She recalled that her father's notebook had mentioned a plant called corpse flower. Its properties were very suitable for making a new adhesive. So Wei went to the address on the poster. She pried open the exhibition hall's door and slipped inside. Wei extracted some of the corpse flower's sap, and then sneaked into the school laboratory to work late. The teacher was flirting with a female student, Anna. When he heard someone enter, he secretly observed through the blinds. Wei used a scraper to remove skin from her thigh, and then applied the newly made graft. Next, she injected the corpse flower sap. The skin indeed began to heal slowly. The teacher told Anna to leave through the side door first, and that he wanted to talk to Wei. Wei excitedly showed the teacher the healing scar on her leg. Meanwhile, the jealous Anna secretly took a picture of this intriguing scene. Anna was unhappy that the teacher's attention was taken away from her. She walked into the laboratory, and took Wei away under the pretense of girls' night. Seeing progress in the experiment, the teacher thought about the notebook. He took pictures of all of Wei's father's notes, and sent them to a classmate in the translation department. He asked for help translating them into English. Anna sent that photo to Angela, asking her what was going on. Angela immediately went home to confront Wei. She discovered that Wei wasn't at home. She called her mother to complain, but Munsa dismissed her daughter as just being willful. She didn't take Angela seriously at all. In fact, she was so invested in her career that she rarely paid attention to her daughter. Angela had always held a grudge about this. At the same time, Anna took Wei out to the wilderness, and questioned her about why she was trying to seduce the teacher. Wei couldn't explain herself clearly. Anna abandoned her in the wilderness and drove away. Wei could only walk home on foot. As soon as she entered, she saw Angela sitting on the sofa. Angela had even damaged her father's memorial. Wei finally couldn't hold back her anger. She yelled at Angela. The two quickly got into a scuffle. Angela grabbed Wei by the neck and wouldn't let go. As Wei struggled desperately, she felt a pair of chopsticks on the floor. Wei grabbed them and stabbed at Angela. The chopsticks unexpectedly pierced through Angela's head. At this moment, Munsa's phone rang. Wei forced herself to calm down. She dragged Angela into the bathtub upstairs, and quickly made a bold decision. Wei prepared to swap identities with Angela. She used a scalpel to cut off her entire facial skin along the contours. Then, she did the same to Angela. Wei applied the new skin to her face, and then merged it with the corpse flower sap. After a series of convulsions, she had a new face. Munsa quickly returned home, because she couldn't reach her daughter's phone. She didn't notice anything strange about her daughter, and kept apologizing for her previous attitude. Meanwhile, the pet dog couldn't mistake its owner's scent, and was frantically licking the body under the bed. Wei hid in the bathroom, and opened Angela's social media. She attempted to mimic her cousin's usual behavior. Munsa knocked on the bathroom door, and said she would be on a business trip for an entire week. She asked her daughter to take good care of Wei. Munsa's trip was truly perfect. Wei could practice at home without worry, to avoid exposing her true identity. The next day, she went to class with great anticipation. Everyone she passed greeted Angela. Angela's boyfriend even came over to hug her. These were experiences Wei had never had before. Unfortunately, before she could enjoy it for a few minutes, she learned that Angela was going to participate in a game competition. Wei had no idea how to play video games at all, let alone participate in a competition. In a moment of desperation, she broke her finger in a cabinet. The doctor advised her not to use her hand freely for several weeks. Wei narrowly escaped a crisis this time. The next day, she dressed up carefully to meet Angela's boyfriend. This was because he said he would take her out on a date. The two went to a place for a picnic. Wei gazed at the handsome boy, and her heart had already fallen for him. She didn't notice that the scar on her head was deepening. The fake skin on her face fell onto the boy's face. Wei revealed a bloodied and mangled face. The boy was so scared that he stepped back, and fell off the cliff, dying on the spot. Wei couldn't understand what had gone wrong. She quickly ran home to search for her father's notes. No matter how hard she searched, she couldn't find them. She called the teacher, but it went straight to voicemail. The teacher was up all night studying the notes, and discovered that the corpse flower could be used as an adhesive. He immediately set off to the flower pavilion to collect samples. After Wei used the corpse flower to reattach her facial skin, she barged into the teacher's office to search for the notes. However, Wei searched every corner and found nothing. After several attempts, she finally reached the teacher on the phone. Wei discovered that the man wanted to steal her father's research. Wei was at a loss about what to do, but then she caught sight of Anna standing downstairs. She walked over and tapped on the car window. Wei begged Anna to give her a ride home. It would take some time to drive home. In the darkness, Wei greedily sized up Anna. Anna's skin was flawless and smooth. Soon after, Wei arrived at her destination. She asked Anna to go shopping with her the next day, but Anna called out to Wei and advised her to apply some moisturizer. When she got home, "Your cheeks are so dry that they're about to crack." Wei hurried upstairs to check her skin, and indeed found that her skin was starting to crack. She had to quickly find new skin to replace it. The next morning, Wei went out shopping with Anna. The two tried on clothes in a boutique. Anna wanted to dress up to win back the indifferent teacher. She was focused on choosing outfits, and didn't notice that Wei was mimicking her actions. They shopped until evening, before heading back to Angela's house together. A neighbor saw the scene through the window. Wei turned around, and gently locked the door. Anna asked why there was a foul smell of decay in the house. Wei casually replied, "It must be that weirdo's doing." Although Anna didn't question it, she felt that Angela was acting a bit strange tonight. She suggested that she wanted to go home early, but Angela said, "I have something to show you." Anna had to follow her upstairs. When Wei saw her coming, she raised the curling iron and swung it at Anna. However, the blow didn't knock Anna out. Anna quickly got up and ran downstairs. She discovered that the front door was locked. Wei turned off the lights and slowly walked downstairs with her weapon. Since the house was still under renovation, Anna escaped through a gap into the yard, but the fence outside was also tightly locked. She had to dive into the pool and hold her breath. Wei saw bubbles rising to the surface and immediately guessed that Anna was hiding inside. She crouched down with a power drill and grabbed Anna by the hair. Then she turned on the drill and plunged it into the water. Blood sprayed out of the pool violently, quickly staining the surrounding water red. Wei waited until Anna stopped struggling before releasing the drill. She dragged Anna's body into the bathtub to try to skin Angela first, but the tissue was too tightly adhered, and no matter how she tried, she couldn't peel it off. Just then, there was a knock on the door downstairs. An elderly lady complained that Angela's pet dog had been barking for 2 hours. "If you don't make it shut up soon, I will call the police right away." Wei hid behind the door and whispered an apology, not daring to reveal her torn half-face. The next day, she pulled out a golden hair dye. Then she put in green contact lenses. Once everything was ready, Wei donned Anna's face and assumed her third identity. 2 police officers came to visit, saying they wanted to question Angela. It was regarding a missing student case. With Anna's face on, Wei told the 2 officers to wait a moment. She needed to go upstairs to change clothes first. The 2 police officers were quite rude and directly climbed through the unfinished hole. They inspected the house without concern and didn't find anything suspicious. Moreover, Wei said that Angela wasn't home, so they could only leave their business cards and leave. And Wei changed his clothes and went to school to enjoy the stunning gaze of her classmates. Suddenly, Amy grabbed her and said she couldn't reach Angela. She heard that her boyfriend Josh was missing. The police had come to the school to investigate. Wei felt very guilty upon hearing this. After all, she was the one who scared Josh to death. Amy suggested that they look for Angela after class. Wei quickly brushed her off. She explained that she wasn't feeling well at the moment and didn't want to run around. Wei's only objective now was to use Anna's identity to lure Mr. Bob in order to retrieve her father's notebook. Mr. Bob wasn't exactly a paragon of virtue, and after class, he pulled Anna to his home. Wei suppressed her disgust and got close to him. As soon as she got home, she rushed into the bathroom to shower. Recently, the weather has been hot, and the stench of corpses has become increasingly severe. Wei decided to get rid of Angela and Anna first. The bodies had not yet been buried. The barking dog attracted the neighbor lady over. Wei hurried over to stop the elderly lady and introduced herself as Angela's good friend. She explained that the dog was barking because Angela wasn't home. The neighbor lady found the girl a bit strange and didn't want to stay longer, so she quickly took her leave. Wei rushed into the house and stuffed food into various texts and calls until the dead person's phone was almost bursting. Everyone was asking, "Where have you been? Why aren't you answering your phone?" Things were gradually spiraling out of control, or perhaps, from the moment Wei used chopsticks to pierce Angela's brain, everything had begun to unravel. Wei took a deep breath. She sent the photo of Bob looking at her thigh to the education department's email to report him. The next day, the police took Mr. Bob away. Wei seized the opportunity to break into his mansion and searched everywhere for her father's notebook. She hadn't found anything yet. When Bob returned, he was furious after being fired from the school and had no time to deal with Anna. Wei could only go home, feeling anxious. Fortunately, Bob had made significant progress using the corpse flower extract. He quickly called Anna over to celebrate and insisted on opening a few bottles of good wine. Wei noticed a box in Bob's wine cabinet. She opened it to find that it contained an experimental solution. Wei took the test tube and closed the cabinet door, only to realize that the skin on her face was starting to crack. Wei quickly found an excuse to slip back home. Bob noticed that she was acting strangely today and rushed to check his wine cabinet. He discovered that the experimental solution was missing. Fortunately, the notebook was still there. Meanwhile, Wei went home and peeled off Anna's skin to regenerate her own face with the solution. Although there were still many blisters on it, at least it looked somewhat human. Suddenly, Amy's voice rang out from outside. Wei hurriedly shoved the bottles and jars into a drawer. Amy was very surprised to see her and asked Wei where she had been lately. "Have you seen Angela?" She invited Wei to stay at her house to avoid being scared living alone here. As Amy spoke, she opened the refrigerator to put in the food she had brought. Inside, there was a human head piled up. Wei quickly wrapped Amy with plastic wrap. Killing one is murder. Killing many is still murder. She realized there was no turning back now. Bob arrived at Wei's house and noticed Anna's car parked in the yard. Bob curiously walked around to the side of the yard. He climbed through the broken hole. "Wow, is this a doggy door?" As soon as Bob entered, he saw Wei slumped in front of the memorial. He noticed her golden hair and that she was wearing the pink dress from earlier. Bob thought she was Anna. It wasn't until he got closer that he recognized it was Wei. He smugly declared, "I'm about to become the most famous scientist. Before I lose my temper, hand over that bottle of solution." Wei chuckled darkly.
You want your vial? It's in the fridge.
Bob opened the fridge, and upon looking inside, he found Anna's head and severed limbs in the freezer. Wei seized the opportunity and stabbed him. When Bob woke up, he found himself lying on the table. The skin on his chest had been peeled away. Wei transplanted the endlessly regenerating skin onto Bob's face. The human skin instantly covered his mouth and nose. Bob's desperate struggling attracted the neighbor lady. She stumbled upon this horrifying scene and rushed out to call the police. At this point, one can't help but criticize how the front door of the protagonist's house is practically useless. Anyone can just come in whenever they want. The sound of police sirens approached from the street. Wei hurriedly grabbed her bag and ran away. She arrived at the subway station, covered in blood. 2 police officers were chasing her from behind. Wei happened to see a homeless man and ran over to hide beneath his blanket. In the process, she accidentally shattered the last of the solution. The homeless man helped Wei fend off the police and was about to ask what happened when, unexpectedly, his skin began to merge with Wei's due to the solution. Both let out agonizing screams as their tissues wildly proliferated. Soon after, the police thoroughly searched Angela's house. They discovered the bodies inside. Munsa returned home, heartbroken. Whenever she saw someone on the street who resembled her daughter, she couldn't help but chase after them. That night, she encountered a homeless man on the street. When she took a closer look, she was nearly scared out of her wits. Munsa dropped what she was holding and hurried away. She didn't recognize that the terrifying creature was her niece. Wei. The film ends here. The overall setting and stylistic approach are quite similar to last year's hit film The Substance. It tells the terrifying consequences of pursuing beauty. However, it falls short in every aspect compared to The Substance. Although this film isn't extremely refined, it does have some clever touches in terms of audio-visual elements. Of course, one can't delve too deeply while watching. For instance, the protagonist can simply change her face and instantly disguise herself as a different ethnicity. If one doesn't scrutinize the logic and details, it can still be considered a relatively exciting low-budget film. The performances of several young actors were also impressive.